All right, welcome back, guys. So I'm here with a very special guest today, Ryan Vlasic. He is a real estate agent up in Siesta Key. Ryan has been in the business for over a decade, going on 13 years. He's also licensed in the state of Virginia, but mainly obviously covers Siesta Key area, Sarasota, Manatee. I thought since that's not really my main area of focus, he'd be an awesome guest to get on and give you guys kind of a market update of what he's seeing on the ground there today. So thanks for being here today, Ryan.
All right, thanks for having me, Ben. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to the chat. So just to kind of kick it off, people follow the channel and they know what's going on in most of Southwest Florida, most of my areas pretty well. We don't talk about the Siesta Key area too often. Can you tell me, what's the general feel working up there right now?
Well, right now is our slow season. So after Easter is when everybody pretty much goes back up north. We have a lot of people here from the Midwest. So after Easter, it slows down quite a bit. So things kind of get a lot more quiet on the Key. The general pulse of the real estate market is everybody is kind of aware that we're seeing shifts and transitions, and that's going in the buyer's favor. So I feel like the general consensus is people are more interested in buying a house because they feel like they have more of an upper hand than they did before. So it's kind of a good thing for buyers to be looking, and this is primarily a second home area.
Okay.
So that's, where most of my transactions come from, or people buying second homes.
Okay. So seeing a seasonal slowdown, as we do in much of the state of Florida, we're kind of seeing that now. We're seeing it in my area. If you were to compare and contrast this season's activity up in the Siesta Key area as compared to maybe when we were in the height of 2022 or even pre-pandemic, it would be very interesting to hear you speak on that, boots on the ground.
Okay. Yeah, so definitely there's been a noticeable difference this season versus, let's say, 2020 to 2023. Those years were pretty much an anomaly because there were so many people trying to move here and basically escape certain elements of political situations that were going on in other places.
Mm-hmm.
That's really kind of come to an end. Now kind of back to a normal real estate market, back to a normal season. We're not seeing anywhere near as many people here now. And my wife actually has a store in Siesta Key, so she sees a definite impact on her business as well. And I think a lot of businesses are seeing the same thing. So yeah, it's definitely slower here. Of course, it's more busy during the season until Easter, but there's been a definite noticeable difference this year versus years past.
Would you be able to go into anything you're seeing, like how's inventory looking in some areas up there? How are days on market? Can you elaborate on any of that and maybe some specific locations?
Yeah, so as far as real estate in Sarasota County, just to give you the numbers, our inventory levels are 5,478 active listings right now versus this time last year we had 2,731. So
Wow.
that's a 100%, over 100% increase from a year ago. So that's probably the biggest difference that I'm seeing right now is inventory. And I think a lot of buyers are right now starting to notice that as well.
Okay. So yeah, basically double numbers, what we're kind of seeing start to occur up and down the Southwest coast. Are you seeing that effect? Obviously, houses, I'm assuming, are staying on the market longer.
Yeah, so days on market is going to depend more on the area in Sarasota. So when you break down these specific zones, for example, the places where a majority of the transactions are cash, the days on market's going to be less than the areas of Sarasota that are primarily loan transaction locations. Is just to give you an example of that. Siesta Key is going to be like maybe 80% cash transactions.
Wow.
Long Bay Key, 80 or 90% cash transactions. And you're talking about multi-million-dollar houses in those areas. So that's another point I need to bring up is the numbers are kind of skewed because when you look at the median sales price and why isn't it really going down that much, it's because the areas that the houses are selling are areas that are more expensive. So that's kind of the main people are like, why aren't prices going down? And that's the answer to that question. And just to give you, substantiate what I'm saying, just the days on market, I have different areas listed for days on market. Just to give you an idea, Siesta Key average days on market is 38 days on market to sell a house. And Longboat Key's 50 days on market. Nokomis Venice is 35 and 40 days on market respectively. And Nokomis and Venice is probably 60% cash transactions. Okay. Like I said, on the barrier islands, it can be over 80% cash transactions. But then you contrast that with areas like Southgate, for example. Southgate is 78 average days on market to sell a house. And that's an area where more of your full-time residents are going to be living. Okay. That's an area where you're going to have a majority of your sales are going to be loan transactions. And that's where we're seeing the interest rates being elevated right now, affecting those areas more, because those are the areas where people are getting a loan. And, the median sales or the median income is like $76,000. It just doesn't correlate to blank house and Siesta Key.
You're really honed in on what the cash versus loan transactions are. That's a very good way of looking at it. And that is something I'm running into as well when people are like, hey, why aren't prices moving in certain areas? Luxury high-end stuff is still moving, especially by you. And there's a lot of money out there and there's people willing to pay it. But even like 30 days on market, like you mentioned in Siesta Key, is practically nothing. Still these days, like down here, it's like 80 days all across Charlotte County.
Right. Yeah. And the average sales price of a single family home on Siesta Key is like $2 million.
Yes. Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's a little bit of an anomaly.
Now, someone who's diving down into the data like you are, you can see these anomalies and why they're happening. But if you were to just look at, like, say, the board stats or like a Zillow area code, Sarasota County's average sales price looks like it's through the roof, but it's a couple of those properties just dragging it way up.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
That's interesting. And that covers some of a bit. What I was going to go into next is the pricing there. I was going to ask you how you're seeing prices, if they're moving, if they're fluctuating or anything. It sounds like it's kind of stable, if I'm correct. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So at one point, let's say like in the spring of 2022, which was our peak, we're over 100%. It was like 101, 102% of the original list price is what the final sales price was. So $500,000 house is selling for $505,000, $506,000. Whereas right now, the original list price to sales price ratio is more like 92%. So now we're seeing houses selling for roughly 7% less than what the original list price was. And just to give you an example, on a $500,000 house, at a 7.2% difference, that $500,000 house will be selling for $464,000.
Wow, that's
kind of where we're at right now.
That's kind of a big clip. That's one of the bigger numbers that I've honestly seen. Down here we keep track of that too, and it's again, guys, that's also the final listing price after they've done price drops. Right. So after they've done price drops, they're still only getting 92% up in Sarasota County. I was in a community the other day, and I found it interesting what the rep said to me. I don't know if you're seeing this. They basically indicated that a lot of their sales, this community was inland, were coming from coastal people who can no longer afford the insurance on their houses, like on Siesta Key or Longboat, or even down here in Minnesota Key. I don't know if you're seeing any of that, but can you kind of just speak to how the insurance situation up there has affected your market in any way?
Yeah, it's funny you ask that question, because I actually met with a seller yesterday, and the reason why they wanted to move from Siesta Key was for insurance purposes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So they didn't pay flood insurance anymore, so they wanted to be east of 41. So that's kind of funny that you asked that question. Yeah, insurance definitely plays into it quite a bit.
Wow. Yeah. So they're seeing, I mean, you guys are getting crazy rates, crazy renewals. Do you think that's driving some of this inventory in your area?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, insurance is affecting debt to income ratios quite a bit. So if you're getting a loan, obviously the insurance escrow has to be factored into your monthly payment. And I think that's causing a lot of buyers to have to pull back. You know, you got insurance, you have taxes. You know, it's not just the interest rate; it's things like your escrows. So when insurance goes up, it's going to affect the sales 100%.
Yeah, it's definitely limited the buyer pool here. I can see how that's happening there. That's super interesting because I just heard that, and to have you go to a seller who's basically doing the same. A lot of our people here south of Venice in my area are not looking to stay in the state. I'm seeing that are leaving, but everybody's looking for the, what's the big answer to why everybody's selling their houses all of a sudden.
And also too, Ben, there's a lot of people that are just self-insured. They just drops insurance. They don't have any loan on their house, and they just don't want it. They're willing to take the risk.
Yeah, I'm seeing that down here. A lot of it's funny you said that because I'm dealing with one right now. Same thing. And the insurance agents that I sent, the person's buying cash, the insurance agents I sent them to, are following up, and they're like, "Well, what's going on?" I'm like, "I think they're just going to self-insure," and that they go crazy. And I'm like, I understand the risk, but I also understand why people are considering that. That's a big variable here. Like if we get shook up with another storm, there's definitely been an increase of people who are going the self-insurance route as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep.
Wanted to ask about your thoughts on new construction up there, because here and up, I'm sure from what I've seen up there, and you'll second this, they are just building houses everywhere. What kind of stuff are you seeing up there as far as new builds go?
So we don't, believe it or not, Sarasota doesn't have a lot of new construction like a lot of people think we have. It's pretty much relegated to places like Venice and Lakewood Ranch. And Lakewood Ranch is actually Manatee County. But that's where the majority of our new construction is. It's going to be east of 75, and it's going to be more further south, like, places like Venice or down more towards your area there. But yeah, the inventory for new construction has gone up just like everything else has gone up. I think new construction is a more attractive alternative for a lot of people because builders are giving people incentives. They're giving people rate buy down incentives, and they're getting a brand new house. So you asked about insurance. I mean, you have a brand new house, you have a brand new roof, and insurance companies don't like old roofs. So, it's really affected the resale market, the new construction has, because, you could, in Sarasota, you can have a resale house that's 10 years old in a new construction community. So why would you buy a 10-year-old house if you can buy a brand new house? So you buy a 10-year-old house, you got a 10-year-old roof, you got a 10-year-old air conditioning unit, which has to be replaced after 10 years. And the sellers are pricing their houses just like a brand new house.
Yeah, I mean, on the new builds, some of these brand new houses, even up in like Lakewood Ranch area, these are 2,300 square foot houses with pools, and the insurance numbers they're throwing out are like, it'd be like 2,800 a year estimate, guys. It's going to change for each person, but that's fabulous at this point. For that reason alone. You seen any like really quick, good quick move-in specials up there or anything like that? Builders getting real aggressive, or are they kind of holding tight?
I'm sure you get these emails just like I do. These emails from builders constantly about these, you want to call them a move-in special or incentives like, $20,000, $30,000 incentives, which brings me to another point. Those concessions, those seller concessions are not being recorded in the MLS sold data. So when a resale goes to price their house, they're pricing it according to the new construction. They didn't give they didn't show the MLS data, and on the MLS data, they're getting $30,000 in a rate buy down incentive.
That's an excellent point. And why we have such, sometimes people will ask me, why do we have so many data fluctuations, Ben? Like, you read from the MLS, you read from the Board of Realtors, I read from Redfin, and there's nothing like ever really matches up, but a lot of it is self-reported. And that's an excellent point. A lot of people will not put in the additional details in the MLS when they sell it, if they enter it at all. And just as an instance, I don't want to call anything out, but in my area, I saw a $330,000 new build. I know they're $330,000 because I sell them. Accidentally get entered in as a sold for $3.3 million. Somebody fat fingered you know, the
Yeah, that'll
keyboard.
mess up the comps a little bit.
And yeah, exactly. So that was my concern, was like, this is going to skew the average sales price like tremendously for that neighborhood. So, you know, I did put in a request, like hopefully the system fixes it, but that's what we're relying on. And you're absolutely correct. We're not, those are shadow price drops.
And these builders are going to continue to do that because the definition of a motivated seller is a builder when you think about it. They want to move inventory. They're not going to let you walk in there and not offer you something, right?
That's
almost like buying a car.
That's a great phrase.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. It's true though, because you have sellers that say, I'll sell if I get my price. And they're willing to hold on and, you know, just eat all those carrying costs. But a builder doesn't have that luxury. They want to sell and move on to the next project.
Excellent point. And that's what I've been seeing from them. Even if the builders, you know, the reps can only do, like you said, like car sales, the reps can only do what the reps can do. And then the reps have to go, I'll talk to the manager and things like that. And the more serious it gets, that seems to be a little more willing that they'll go for that wiggle room. But yeah, that's a great point. You know, they've got to move inventory, and why would you pay the insurance on a 40-year-old house if they'll wheel and deal with you?
Yeah. No, I mean, it definitely makes sense to buy new construction for so many people right now. I mean, especially people who are first-time buyers, which I don't really work a whole lot with first-time buyers. I'm not sure if you do or not, but if I have a first-time buyer and they don't want to be near the beach or within 10 minutes to the beach, I think new construction is probably a better option for them at this point.
Are you seeing a trend towards, you know, the big question is like, oh, everyone asks, oh, are things going to go back to 2019 pricing? Are things going to go back to 2019 inventory? Do you see it, like, in your opinion, heading in that direction, or do you think we're kind of going to stagnate here for a while up in Sarasota County?
I think it's going to depend on the economy.
Okay.
I think that some of this stuff is kind of out of our control. There's a macro picture of the economy that I think people need to study in order to try to make that determination. But at this point, I think we see the data moving more and more in the buyer's favor. I think it's, you know, the inventory levels is an example. I think the inventory level is only going to continue to grow. You know, if you have a second home in Sarasota, and let's say something happens in the economy and you need the cash, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to sell your second house in Sarasota, right? So that's a potential shadow inventory source, I think. And then you just have a lot of Airbnbs that are maybe not producing. And now Airbnbs are more in certain areas, because on a single family home in Sarasota County, you have to rent for a minimum lease period of 30 days. Okay. Now in Sarasota City, you can rent for weeks. So there's a lot of Airbnbs within the Sarasota City limits, but we're seeing a lot of inventory pick up in Sarasota City because those Airbnbs are maybe not as productive as they were before. For example, in 2020 and 2021, 2022, when everybody and their brother was trying to come to Sarasota, right?
Yeah.
That's changed quite a bit. So that's going to affect our housing market too. I think there's different sources of inventory that I think we have yet to see, but I think we're going to start to see that in the future.
All right, guys. Well, that's all we got for today. I want to thank Ryan for being here. Appreciate it, man. And if you guys are interested in the Siesta Key, Sarasota area, give Ryan a shout. We're going to have his info in the description below. It's also ryanvlasic.com if you guys want to contact him. Again, Ryan, thank you so much for stopping in today. It was an absolute blast chatting with you.
Thanks for having me, Ben. I appreciate it. It's good times, man.
Yeah, we'll do it again sometime. All right, guys, if you like this video, give me a like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.